Welcome to Late Night Spooks. The first story is The Unseen Threat. Sarah had always dreamed of going to university, but her parents couldn't afford it. Undeterred, she worked hard, got a scholarship, and finally enrolled in a top university. At first, she struggled to keep up with the demanding coursework, the unfamiliar environment, and the fit in. She felt overwhelmed, but she refused to give up. However, as Sarah began to succeed and thrive, she started to notice strange and unsettling things happening around her. She would hear footsteps following her when she was alone in the library. She would find her books and notes moved or missing, and she would sense someone watching her. She felt scared and paranoid, but she couldn't find anyone who believed her. One day, Sarah was studying late in the library when she heard a loud noise. She looked up and saw that one of the bookcases had fallen over, blocking her exit. She tried to move it, but it was too heavy. She called for help, but no one answered. She heard a whisper behind her, and she turned around, but she saw no one. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, and she was plunged into darkness. Sarah screamed for help, but no one came. She felt a cold hand on her shoulder, and she screamed again. Suddenly, the lights came back on, and she was alone. She ran out of the library, but she never told anyone what happened. She felt haunted and afraid, and she never went back to the library. Now this story ends here, and we have another story. The Secret Society. David came to university as a shy, introverted young man, seeking a place to belong. He was homesick and lonely until he discovered a group of like-minded people who shared his interests. They formed a tight-knit community where they could be themselves and explore their passions. At first, David felt accepted and valued, but he soon realized that there was more to the group than he thought. He started to notice strange symbols and cryptic messages, and he overheard whispers of dark rituals and hidden agendas. He felt uneasy and scared, but he couldn't bring himself to leave the group. He felt drawn to them, and he felt like they knew something he didn't. One night, David was invited to a secret meeting where the group revealed their true nature. They were a cult worshipping an ancient and evil deity who demanded sacrifices and obedience from its followers. They offered David a choice: to join them and gain untold power and knowledge, or to leave and face their wrath. David felt trapped and terrified, and he didn't know what to do. He tried to escape, but he was caught and taken to the cult's hidden lair, where he was subjected to mind control and torture. He was forced to participate in their twisted rituals, and he watched in horror as his friends and fellow students were sacrificed. He felt like he was living in a nightmare, and he didn't know if he would ever escape. Now let's proceed to another story. The Shadow in the Classroom. Lena was an ambitious and hard-working student, eager to learn from the best. She was thrilled to be assigned to Professor Thomas, a renowned scholar in her field. At first, Professor Thomas was aloof and distant, but as Lena's knowledge and skills grew, he took notice of her. He began to mentor her, sharing his wealth of knowledge and experience, and they formed a close bond. However, as Lena spent more time with Professor Thomas, she started to see a different side of him. She noticed that he was often absent, or he would disappear during class. She would hear strange noises, like whispers and footsteps, coming from the shadows. She felt like someone was watching her, and she felt scared and paranoid. One day, Lena decided to confront Professor Thomas and ask him what was going on. When she entered his office, she found him sitting in the dark, staring at her with blank eyes. He didn't answer her questions, but instead he whispered in a voice that wasn't his, "I've been waiting for you." Lena tried to run, but she was stopped by an invisible force. She felt hands grasping at her, and she felt a cold breath on her neck. She screamed for help, but no one came. Suddenly, Professor Thomas snapped out of his trance, and he was himself again. He didn't remember anything that had happened, and he didn't understand why Lena was so frightened. Lena felt like she was losing her mind, and she didn't know. She felt like the university was hiding something from her, and she felt like she was in danger. She tried to leave, but she was warned by a mysterious voice not to go. She felt trapped and scared, and she didn't know what to do. As she went deeper into the dark secrets of the university, Lena discovered that there was an evil entity that was using the students and the faculty for its own twisted purposes. It was a force that was beyond human understanding, and it was beyond her control. She felt like she was being consumed by the darkness, and she didn't know if she would ever escape. But Lena was determined to uncover the truth and put an end to the entity's reign of terror. She did some research and found out that the entity had been active for centuries, preying on the vulnerable and the unsuspecting. It had taken many forms, and it had caused great pain and suffering to those who had crossed its path. Lena was not going to let herself be a victim, and she was not going to let anyone else suffer either. She gathered all the evidence she could find, and she shared it with the other students. Together, they formed a group and set out to confront the entity and destroy it once and for all. It was a dangerous journey, but Lena and her friends were brave and determined. They entered the entity's lair and fought their way through the minions it had created. They encountered horrors beyond their imagination, but they never gave up. In the end, they reached the entity itself, and they engaged in a fierce battle. The entity was powerful, but Lena and her friends were relentless. They struck the final blow, and the entity was destroyed. The students emerged victorious, but they were not unscathed. They had been through a traumatic experience, and they had been changed by it. They had seen the worst that the world had to offer, but they had also seen the best. They had found strength and courage in each other, and they had discovered that love and friendship were the greatest weapons against evil. Lena and her friends left the university, but they never forgot their experiences. They had bonded over their shared nightmare, and they had become lifelong friends. They knew that they would always remember the horrors they had faced, but they also knew that they had triumphed over them. They were stronger and more united, and they were ready for whatever life had in store for them. And this story ends here. Another story is The Experiment, a university horror story. At a prestigious university, a group of students decided to participate in a secret, experimental research project. The project promised to pay them a large sum of money for their participation, but the students soon realized that there was more to the experiment than meets the eye. The students were told that they would be testing a new drug that would enhance their brain function and creativity, but as they began to take the drug, strange things started to happen. The experiment began to go wrong almost immediately, with strange, supernatural occurrences happening all around the campus. The students started to experience vivid hallucinations and nightmares, and they began to act erratically and irrationally. Some students started to develop strange powers and abilities, while others began to exhibit disturbing and violent behavior. The students soon discovered that the experiment was being conducted by a mad scientist who was attempting to tap into the dark, supernatural forces of the universe. The scientist had used the students as test subjects in his twisted experiment, and he had created a powerful entity that was now threatening to destroy the world. The students found themselves fighting for their lives against the entity that the scientist had unleashed, and they realized that they might never leave the university alive. They banded together, determined to stop the entity and put an end to the experiment once and for all. But as they delved deeper into the dark heart of the experiment, they realized that they were up against a far greater and more sinister force than they could ever have imagined. As this story ends here, now we have another story. The Curse of the Library, a university horror story. In the heart of the university, there was a dark, foreboding library. It was said that the library was cursed, and that anyone who entered would never return. The library had been closed for many years, and it was rumored to be haunted by the spirits of those who had fallen victim to the curse. A group of students, curious about the legend, decided to explore the library. What they found was far beyond their wildest nightmares. The library was filled with ghostly apparitions, and they soon realized that they were not alone. The students encountered a powerful entity that was trapped within the walls of the library, and it was determined to escape and wreak havoc on the world. The entity had been bound to the library for centuries, and it was now desperate to break free and claim its revenge. The students found themselves in a race against time to stop the entity from breaking free and unleashing its wrath on the university and the surrounding town. They soon discovered that the only way to stop the entity was to break the curse that had kept it trapped in the library for centuries. But as they delved deeper into the dark secrets of the library, they realized that they were in over their heads. The entity was far more powerful and dangerous than they could have ever imagined, and it was determined to claim their lives and the lives of everyone in the university. The students found themselves caught in a nightmare from which there was no escape, and they soon realized that the only way to survive was to face their fears and break the curse once and for all. Thanks for listening to these stories. If you have not subscribed yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button now.